Hello and welcome to this CNBC Africa special. We're coming to you from Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, and I'm Bronwyn Seaborne. Ethiopia is more well known for its agricultural sector, but it has recently played host to many thought leaders and government officials who meet here to discuss ideas. The Africa Innovation Digital Summit met here last week, and I sat down with key thought leaders and decision makers to look at Africa's ICT sector. With 15% of the world's population calling Africa home and growth on the continent expected to rise to as much as 7% by 2015, investors are seeing it as the land of opportunity. Governments are also taking advantage of this increased interest, and one sector set to benefit from this is the ICT sector. According to UNESCO, every 10% increase in access to broadband in developing countries results in a 1.38% increase in GDP. Therefore, any country seeking growth, job and wealth creation must address their minds to how it can increase access to broadband. In just a few short years, large parts of Africa have gained access to international fiber bandwidth via submarine cables, but only 13.5% of the African population has internet access. At the Innovation Digital Summit held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia this year, business leaders and government officials met to discuss how they can be part of the African digital revolution.
Innovation Africa Digital Summit is important because it brings the key stakeholders together. So it's not just focused on operators or just on regulators or just on policymakers, but it brings them all together, and it puts them together with the companies that can provide the solutions for the problems that they're talking about within the programme. So it's a meeting place more than anything else, and it's a meeting place for doing business, for making partnerships, and for looking at best practices and seeing how you can apply them to your own environment. There isn't one goal for the conference. There are many goals. The overall objective when we put together the IAD Summit year on year is to support the sustainable growth of the industry. And each year we hope that that happens through the introductions that we make, the business introductions, the access to the international community is very important for many African countries. Hosted by Ethiopia this year, there's many perceptions about Ethiopia and very few of them are correct. It's an area and a country that is very keen to attract inward investment from big international organisations. They have put many policies in place which make that a favourable approach, and Ethiopia a favourable destination for an East African hub. They are building a massive IT park development on the outskirts of Addis, and one of the reasons MCIT partnered with Extensia is because of our ability and our connections internationally to bring, not only from across Africa but from across the world, solution providers, service providers, ministers and policymakers and regulators, even from Afghanistan, as you've seen at this year's event.
We believe that as a stakeholder when it comes to really ICT in Africa, we need to somehow contribute to whatever initiative we think can help us move the needle, even if it's a little bit. And this conference actually is unique. I was here last year, and it's rare to see in also a very competitive environment how a conference year after year is getting better, but more importantly is remaining focused on the core agenda, which is really, again, digital Africa. And yes, we have to, and for us, I mean, we want to be part of that. We can influence that. They are, being a global company, there are challenges that we are facing today in Africa, which luckily we have faced elsewhere in the past. So we can leverage that experience and put it, in application and in service in Africa. So we definitely believe in not only the conference, but the themes that are being discussed. And more importantly, we want to be part of that because we are also part of the solution. Even if it's a tiny part, we're part of that solution.
Behind me, about 100 delegates are gathered to discuss accessibility and affordability and to really come to grips with business models that allow for inclusion.
I am jumping up and down about the prospect of technology-supported learning, making major breakthroughs against the background of a teacher and a piece of chalk on a blackboard and line notebooks and minimal engagement levels.
I think there must be strong involvement of states and the government in the process, because there's a lot the operators can do, but there's a lot which needs to be done at the policy level to just give priority. Some countries are doing it better than others, but that is where it starts to make the change which are required.
From my perspective as a submarine cable provider, it has to be a partnership. It would have to involve both government, private sector and all operators to do it, because there has to be a mix and there has to be an integration of purpose towards it.
The conference attracts many industry players, and a key player in the sector and sponsor of the conference is ZTE. The company came to Africa 15 years ago, and it says it continues to see opportunities in the ICT sector. With China's two-way trade with Africa at $166 billion in 2011, which is 3 times the 2006 amount, more and more companies like ZTE are finding Africa an attractive investment destination.
Well, but when we planned to go overseas market, that is the first overseas market we need to involve. I think Africa is very suitable for ZTE. I mean, for the China company, because the telecommunication is originated from Europe and USA. So there are a lot of multinational vendors who occupy that high-end markets. That is the first reason. So we need to seek emerging market. There was lack of the technology and the lack of the networks. Though 15 years ago, Africa is is in that status. That is the first one. Second one is China's government has a very good relationship with Africa, that. So that will help us to get involved in this market. And the third one, we need to, find a market more easy for us to build the first business, and then we can expand our business to overseas, worldwide. So that is why we are doing here. And even, with the past few years, the telecommunications industry are developing very fast in Africa. So ZTE feels very fortunate and honorable enough to participate in the network construction of Africa. And I think African people benefits from ZTE. ZTE also benefits from African market. And with the rapid growth of the human being information consumption and the GDP economic development, I think African market has a very huge space for telecommunication vendors in the future, because the current network, current ICT level in Africa is still lagging behind than that in developed country or even developing country. So I think they will put much investment on ICT field. So there is big chance for ICT vendors like ZTE. So we believe we can provide advanced technologies and cooperate with operators and governments to build a bright future for Africa.
ZTE has a history in Africa that spans over a decade and a half. Microsoft is currently looking to make similar waves, and the IAD conference announced new plans on how it will be involved in the sector.
Well, the announcement is exciting in the sense that Microsoft for Africa we launched in beginning of April. The initiative really focuses on 3 pillars, which is access to technology for the African continent, world skills, and the introduction and the availability of world-class skills, and then innovation. And I think under the innovation pillar, we're very excited that we are announcing a strategic relationship with iHub and M Labs, which are based out of Nairobi, and they tend to primarily focus in East Africa, and so we are going to expand their ability to touch innovation communities across many of the countries around the Great Lakes, including Ethiopia. Microsoft's ambition, of course, is to take the whole concept and really spread it across the entire continent of Africa. And I think one can think about it as enabling great ideas, the young people in Africa to take their ideas and monetize them, turn them into social applications, business-to-business applications, business-to-consumer applications, but more importantly, to turn them into business for the actual innovator themselves, because I think there's been a tradition where great ideas remain as great ideas, and I think what Microsoft, iHub and M Labs want to do with this relationship is move that significantly up the spectrum of economic development. There's a lot of work to be done even in East Africa. There's also massive opportunity in East Africa. East Africa has established itself perhaps as the hub of innovation in Africa anyway, right? There are many people doing fantastic work in this region, and so let's not ignore them or forget about them. Let's allow them to come to the forefront. I think they will become not only a role model for the rest of the continent, but also encourage investment. And I think this is another very critical aspect of this initiative, is to bring investment to Africa. I think the climate of investment is certainly improving in the continent. I think businesses and companies worldwide are saying, okay, hold on a second, there is something happening in Africa that potentially could be big, right? And so let's use East Africa, let's use the relationship, let's use the initiative, and let's use the innovation to set the role model that says it's good to invest in Africa, and allow the African entrepreneur to essentially take their place from a global competitiveness perspective as well.
For most, accessing internet is only possible at internet cafes or business centers like this, but it doesn't come cheap. Here, a 15-minute slot will cost you 15 birr, which amounts to about $1. The costly nature of internet and the need for more access is topping most governments' agendas. Kenya has recently launched its national ICT master plan, and like Microsoft, it believes that entrepreneurs and the creation of knowledge will spur growth. Connected Kenya 2017 will seek to develop 500 Tier 1 technology companies and 50,000 new jobs in the next 4 years. It also expects Kenya to become Africa's ICT hub. It is hoped that the industry will generate $2 billion annually, up from the $860 million in IT spending it recorded in 2011. We're heading into a short break now, but when we return, we discuss Africa's ICT sector.